Important que ce que l'on attend. Voilà, bonne journée à vous.
Merci Valérie, et donc attention, dans vos déplacements, sérieuse alerte météo, on aura l'occasion d'y revenir, notamment en des matins tout à l'heure avec l'ami Laurent Mignolas. Un coup d'œil à 6h13, bon il y a tous au passage, à vos journaux, avec le prélèvement à la source, c'est vraiment l'heure de vérité, on vous en parlait dès hier, c'est la lune du Parisien, puisque 25 millions de salariés la reçoivent en ce moment leur feuille de paie et leur salaire net d'impôt. Moment crucial et redouté, mais qui semble se dérouler jusqu'ici sans problème majeur, écrit le Parisien. Dans l'édito, le journal enfonce le clou, gageons que d'ici quelques semaines, on aura totalement oublié ce qu'était le tiers provisionnel. Et pourtant, on en a parlé et on a parlé de cette réforme. C'est à peu près le même constat que font les Échos ce matin. L'impôt prélevé à la source passe un cap décisif et pour l'instant, sans bug majeur, la plateforme téléphonique des impôts a été très sollicitée, mais la fréquence des appels baisse. Pour l'instant, je suppose qu'on croise les doigts à Bercy. Tout ça se passe plutôt bien. À propos d'impôts, je vous signale le numéro du magazine 1, vous savez, un thème chaque semaine développé, et justement comment réinventer l'impôt. Vous connaissez les doléances, notamment des gilets jaunes en la matière. Je vous lis cet extrait des doléances des paysans de Culmont, 1789, on est dans les cahiers de doléances avant la Révolution, bien sûr, et c'était tellement d'actualité. Nous sommes accablés d'impôts de toutes sortes, nous vous avons donné jusqu'à présent une partie de notre pain, et il va bientôt nous manquer si cela continue. Si vous voyiez les pauvres chaumières que nous habitons, la pauvre nourriture que nous prenons, vous en seriez touchés. On est là en 1789. Autre réforme qui a peut-être du plomb dans l'aile, celle sur la vitesse réduite à 80 km/h sur le réseau secondaire. Vous savez que sous la pression de certains gilets jaunes, l'exécutif envisagerait un assouplissement, de lâcher du lait sur cette question, ralentir ou mourir, il faut choisir. Libération a choisi son camp. Il ne faut pas revenir sur cette limitation, d'autant que, c'est le constat du Figaro, le Premier ministre vante les bons résultats de cet abaissement à 80 km/h. C'était hier, on vous en a parlé sur France 2, et le Figaro constate que l'avenir pourtant de cette mesure n'est pas encore certain. Bellamy, c'est lui, c'est cet homme, François-Xavier Bellamy, qui va être investi aujourd'hui.
Inside the house, we're not sure how many of the suspects fired this time. You imagine it was a pretty chaotic scene over there, and the investigation is unfolding. As a result of the exchange of gunfire between our officers and one or two suspects, we have 5 officers injured. 4 were struck by gunfire. 2 officers are currently in surgery, and they are in critical but stable condition. And we're hopeful that with the prayers of this community that they will recover. 2 other officers were shot, and they will remain hospitalized for observation for at least a 24-hour period. 1 officer sustained an injury during the gun battle. It's important to note that once the officers, the initial indications are once the officers reached the door and the gunfire began from the suspects. One of the suspects actually retreated momentarily to the back of the room, and then that suspect came back and again engaged the officers and gunfire. I have not been able to determine how many of our officers are shot, have returned fire. That's part of the ongoing investigation. As you can imagine, we needed to work the scene from a tactical perspective. SWAT responded along with other allied agencies. We established a pretty hard perimeter, and once you had 5 officers injured, 4 shot, and 5 believed to be shot at the time, we had to slow down and actually turn it into a very methodical, tactical operation.
And then we'll take pictures of the knife, and then I guess, we'll tag it. And CDC, I'll go again. 10-4.
one or two suspects inside the house. We're not sure how many of the suspects fired this time. You can imagine it was a pretty chaotic scene over there, and the investigation is unfolding. As a result of the exchange of gunfire between our officers and one or two suspects, we have 5 officers. The officers came under fire from one or two suspects inside the house. We're not sure how many of the suspects fired this time. You can imagine it was a pretty chaotic scene over there, and the investigation's unfolding. As a result of the exchange of gunfire between our officers and one or two suspects, we have 5 officers injured. 4 were struck by gunfire. 2 officers are currently in surgery, and they are in critical but stable condition, and we're hopeful that with the prayers of this community that they will recover. 2 other officers were shot, and they will remain hospitalized for observation for at least a 24-hour period. 1 officer sustained an injury during the gun battle. It's important to note that once the officers, the initial indications are once the officers breached the door and the gunfire began from the suspects. One of the suspects actually retreated momentarily to the back of the room, and then that suspect came back and again engaged the officers and gunfire. I have not been able to determine how many officers are shot, have returned fire. That's part of the ongoing investigation. As you can imagine, we needed to work the scene from a tactical perspective. SWAT responded along with other allied agencies. We established a pretty hard perimeter, and once you had 5 officers injured, 4 shot, and 5 believed to be shot at the time, we had to slow down and actually turn it into a very methodical, tactical operation.
Down. 7700 party.
Two suspects were struck by return gunfire by members of the Houston Police Department. Those suspects, once we were able to render the scene safe by SWAT, were pronounced deceased at the scene from return gunfire from the officers.
Well, in other news in Houston, 4 officers were shot tonight trying to conduct a drug search in a home. 2 are in critical but stable condition. 2 others are expected to make a full recovery. Tonight, details are still emerging. Chris Martinez has the latest for WJZ.
We have multiple officers shot.
Houston police officers came under gunfire Monday afternoon while serving a drug search warrant in a residential neighborhood. Police say 2 officers sustained gunshot wounds to the neck.
We know that they breached and they came under fire right away.
2 other officers were also struck by bullets, along with a 5th officer injured during the melee inside the southeast Houston home.
They're still in the house. We have the house surrounded.
2 suspects were killed, officials say, and police used 2 robots to search the home in the aftermath.
This all began because a neighbor had the courage to say, we're not going to put up. We think that they're dealing dope out of this house. Black tar heroin is being dealt out of this, and we know the poison that's killing so many kids.
The crime scene remains under investigation. Chris Martinez, CBS News.
Now we have breaking news in Houston, Texas, where 5 police officers have been shot.
Yeah, those police officers were reportedly serving a warrant when this happened. CBS 2's Sharon Tay joins us from the newsroom, has more details. Sharon?
Indeed, a very intense scene in Houston right now. In fact, it is still an active scene right now. Dozens of first responders rushed to the scene, including the SWAT team. The shooting happened in a residential neighborhood. Officers were reportedly serving a narcotics warrant. The 5 officers were rushed to a hospital. 1 of them had to be airlifted. Shortly after the gunfire, Houston's chief of police tweeted this and asked followers to pray for the officers as he headed to the scene. A neighbor described what she heard.
And I heard like a loud knock, and I thought somebody was knocking on my front door. So then I heard it again. I'm like, oh, I think somebody had a car accident. So then I looked, and then I heard again. I said, that's not a car accident. That sounds like gunshots. And it was like truly loud gunshots.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott issued this statement saying in part, this evening's horrific attack on police officers is a solemn reminder of the service and sacrifice our brave men and women in law enforcement make every day to keep us safe. The city of Houston and the Houston Police Department will have whatever state resources they need to bring swift justice to those involved. Well, tonight, 2 of the officers are in critical condition. 2 suspects are reportedly dead. Police have set up a perimeter for a possible 3rd suspect who apparently is on the run. We will continue to follow this breaking news for you, and we will bring you more information as soon as we get it in. Back to you, Pat.
All right, thanks so much, Sharon.
We continue to follow the breaking news we told you about a few moments ago out of Houston, where several police officers have been shot. And these are live pictures of the scene right now. The Houston Police Officers Union says that 5 officers were shot. 1, we are told, was airlifted there. A suspect was in a home, and officers attempted to serve a warrant. 1 of those suspects is dead. The other 2 are apparently inside. And once again, several officers shot there in Houston. The emergency crews there are responding. We, of course, will stay on top of the story and bring you more tonight on Eyewitness News at 11.
We do now have some breaking news coming in from Houston. Our CBS station KHOU reports at least 5 police officers have been shot tonight. We have not been told what their conditions are. Police are advising people to avoid one section of southeast Houston there. KHOU again reports at this hour the suspect is down and dead. Again, though, at this hour we're being told 5 officers have been shot in Houston.
A 13-year-old boy was shot in the head and killed at a home on Linden Creek Drive. Police are there right now investigating the circumstances of that shooting, and we will have updates for you on ABC13.com and again tonight on Eyewitness News at 10.
71 officer down. 7700 party. Any more ambulances? We're going to be at 7815 Hardy. 7815 Hardy. We have multiple officers shot. We have multiple ambulances. We got officers down. Coordinate with HFD, which way they're going, and to what hospital so we can get units prepared to get that escort going. Assist the officers for the officers being shot 37812 Harding, 7812 Harding, 78 South Central area.
Suspect is DA. I'm Harding. We need to be ready to come up front.
The house is secured. We have the house surrounded. We got units in the back. We still got officers inside. Let's just coordinate with HFD where they're going to transport so we can get that escort going.
Police need your help finding an 11-year-old girl who disappeared from her Southeast Houston home. Elizabeth Mata was last seen late Thursday night in the 600 block of Gilpin. She was last seen wearing a Houston Texans jacket and black tights. Police say it is possible Elizabeth changed her clothes or may have taken other clothes with her. If you know where she is, call Houston Police.
To follow breaking news where officers have been shot in the Houston area.
Yeah, this is really concerning. Houston police are saying 5 officers have been hit in a shooting. They've been taken to local hospitals. Let's take you to a live picture out of there. So in a tweet, Houston police say the officers were struck with gunfire following an encounter with a suspect this afternoon in a neighborhood in southeast Houston. That's what we're looking at now. It's still a very active crime scene. The mayor of Houston, his name is Sylvester Turner, he sent out a message on Twitter saying the suspect is down. We've heard other reports that the suspect has been shot as well. Additional information on the suspect not available right now. Actually, this looks like one of the hospitals potentially where one of the victims was taken. No, I do think that that's the scene. That's definitely the scene. So you can see the number of units there on the scene. So the mayor was seen tonight entering one of those hospitals where the injured officers were taken. Police say the officers were transported to several hospitals. We don't know their conditions. We have heard from the police union, which said one of the officers was actually airlifted to one of those hospitals by helicopter.
Yeah, that may speak to the severity of his injuries, but at this point we don't know how badly hurt the officers are. But they are telling people in the Houston areas, you can see all of these police officers and emergency vehicles around this scene. It looks residential. There's a business there. It looks like a grocery store of some sort. It's hard to make out the lettering on the sign, but they're telling people it's still an active crime scene. They don't want any people in that area of Houston as they work to investigate. Whether that means they've still got another suspect on the loose at this point, we don't know, but at least one suspect they do think is down and no longer a threat. But a major breaking story out of Houston that we will continue to follow. Well, already
A wild chase on the Southwest Freeway ended with a Mini Cooper wedged in between 2 patrol cars. Police say the driver was swerving across lanes, and they tried to pull that driver over, but he kept on going, which started the chase. Police performed a pit maneuver to stop him. He was arrested, as you can see there, in cuffs. Officers believe he was under the influence.
As if there wasn't enough pressure already, Houston Police Chief Art Aceveda is upping the stakes. He just tweeted out his wager with Boston PD's Commissioner William Gross. Now, the loser will have to sport the winning team's hat and jersey for an entire day. You know, those are fighting. I have to redirect you to a hazard pedestrian at Weber and Caravel.
That was about it, and then the last line showed up.
Okay, Rosie, can I ask you one more question?
5 officers injured, 4 were struck by gunfire. 2 officers are currently in surgery. They're in surgery for gunfire sustained, and they are in critical but stable condition. And we're hopeful that with the prayers of this community that they will recover. But again, they are in critical condition.
One scooter company is pulled out of Corpus Christi, but 2 remain.
Our Brian Burns joins us now with the latest on the pilot scooter program created last week by the City Council. Brian.
The ordinance that created the 6-month pilot program for scooter operations included a fee of $1 per scooter per day, but that was too much for one of the 3 companies. Today was the deadline for the scooter companies to sign that agreement by 5 p.m., and the operators of Bird scooters decided not to. But Blue Duck signed last week, and late this afternoon, the owners of Lime scooters also signed the paperwork to operate in the city. Councilmember Ben Molina, a proponent of scooter use, says the market will determine how well the companies do.
They're feeling us out, we're feeling them out, and at the end of 6 months, we're all going to come back to the table and see what worked, what didn't, and what we can do to continue moving forward.
The owners of Bird had proposed a 10-cent per ride fee, saying the dollar fee would make it hard for them to operate financially. The fees are earmarked for improvement of the sidewalks and bike lanes where the scooters travel, and also recovering taxpayer costs to operate the program. Mackenzie, Rudy?
Okay, thank you, Brian.
On the south side this afternoon when an SUV smashed into an RTA bus. According to Corpus Christi police, it happened at the intersection of Hawley and Everhart when the white SUV did not yield the right-of-way, slamming into the bus. 2 people were sent to the hospital, one from the SUV, the other from the bus. Both of them are expected to be okay, but as of right now, there is no word if the driver of that SUV was cited.
Several cane beef employees were worried about their paychecks after some trouble at the processing plant, but the company recently announced all its employees will be paid this week, and any downtime will be used for training and maintenance. The plant was shut down a couple weeks ago because of an issue with the wastewater system. It has since reopened, but a couple of departments were closed last week. In a statement, Cane Beef says the company is working diligently to resume normal operations, work the company hopes is done this week.
With the temperatures getting ready to drop tonight and tomorrow, the Mother Teresa shelter is taking steps to help the homeless. Action 10 News reporter Myra Cordova joins us now live in the studio. She has all the information on what they're doing to keep the public warm. Hey, Myra.
And that's right, Sonia. Earlier this afternoon, volunteers with the Mother Teresa shelter gave out winter accessories like scarves and gloves to about 50 people. The shelter only opens during the day, so during their afternoon stack, people visiting the shelter were able to pick out necessary items to keep them warm, such as gloves, socks, jackets, and everyday clothing like jeans. The shelter says this is all possible thanks to generous donors. Everything that's donated goes right back to the community.
It's a lot of people donating this whole month. They're donating a lot of jackets, coats, and gloves, beanies.
And the Mother Teresa shelter will open tomorrow at 7 a.m. and they invite anyone needing a place to escape the cold or if you need warm clothing to stop by. They also provide hot meals. In studio, Mayra Cordova, Action 10 News.
With the temperatures getting ready to drop tonight and tomorrow, the Mother Teresa shelter is taking steps to help the homeless. Action 10 News reporter Myra Cordova joins us now live in the studio. She has all the information on what they're doing to keep the public warm. Hey, Myra.
And that's right, Sonia. Earlier this afternoon, volunteers with the Mother Teresa shelter gave out winter accessories like scarves and gloves to about 50 people. The shelter only opens during the day, so during their afternoon stack, people visiting the shelter were able to pick out necessary items to keep them warm, such as gloves, socks, jackets, and everyday clothing like jeans. The shelter says this is all possible thanks to generous donors. Everything that's donated goes right back to the community.
It's a lot of people donating this whole month. They're donating a lot of jackets, coats, and gloves, beanies.
And the Mother Teresa shelter will open tomorrow at 7 a.m. and they invite anyone needing a place to escape the cold or if you need warm clothing to stop by. They also provide hot meals. In studio, Mayra Cordova, Action 10 News.
Avant que l'école recommence, alors notre problème c'est de nous amuser pendant ces...
Il doit y avoir un moyen de régler ça. Comme le dit toujours Potiron, un bon détective n'abandonne jamais.
Hello and welcome to Old Time Conspiracies. The Ark of the Covenant is an ancient biblical artifact allegedly containing the stone tablets with the original 10 Commandments written on them. It's described as being a wooden chest covered on all sides with gold. The cover is usually depicted with 2 cherub figures on it, and the box is held up by 2 wooden staves.
It was carried by the Israelites during their 40 years wandering the desert and is allegedly able to release the devastating power of God. It was used to destroy the walls of Jericho, and many who came into contact with the Ark were struck dead. Anyone who's seen Steven Spielberg's Raiders of the Lost Ark can get some idea of how powerful the artifact allegedly was.
Such a great film.
It really was. However, after the fall of Jerusalem to the Babylonians in 586 BC, the whereabouts of the Ark was lost from history forever. Could it still exist today? And if so, where is it? It's time to open the Conspiracy Files.
Many people suspected that if it actually existed, the Ark of the Covenant was most likely destroyed during the destruction of the Temple of Solomon in 586 BC. However, there is reason to suspect it survived and made its way to modern-day Jordan. The Apocrypha, unofficial writings of the Old Testament estimated to be written in approximately 100 BC, states that the prophet Jeremiah, being warned by God of the Babylonian invasion, took the Ark and buried it in a cave on Mount Nebo. Maccabees states that Jeremiah informed his followers who wanted to know the location of the Ark that it will remain hidden until the time God should gather his people again together and receive them unto mercy. Mount Nebo is also described in Deuteronomy as the site from which Moses viewed as the Promised Land, and was apparently also his final burial place. So placing the Ark here would make sense. Yet even after more than 2,000 years, the Ark has never been found at Mount Nebo. Do you think it resides there today?
Setting aside the debate over whether or not the Ark actually exists, sure, because that's very much to do with faith and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Mount Nebo is a very specific location.
Well, that's right, yeah. And interestingly, in 1981, an archaeologist named Tom Crotzer went on an expedition to Mount Nebo and claimed to find the Ark. The Ark itself, the Ark of the Covenant, yeah. Well, he said he found a large object covered with blue material, which they measured to be 62 inches long, 37 inches high, and 37 inches deep. However, Crotzer also runs the Institute for Restoring Ancient History in Kansas, and he's claimed in the past to have also found Noah's Ark and the Tower of Babel. He's had an impressive career, if that's true.
He's a real-life Indiana Jones.
But crucially, he refuses to tell people the location of the Ark of the Covenant. And
why?
He said specifically that God sent me only to locate the Ark. So, a bit of an ego trip.
Well, firstly, you've got to take what he says with a pinch of salt because there's no proof. And secondly, it's tempting to dismiss him as a liar, bit of a trickster. However, think about Indiana Jones. We've all seen the film. If you believe the Ark exists, and if you believe in the power of God, and you believe the Ark contains the power of God, maybe you would keep it hidden.
Quite possibly, yeah. Setting aside all the other evidence and Tom Crotzer, it makes sense that they would take it here. Yeah. It's just 50 kilometers away.
It's a good distance. You're running away from your enemies who are destroying the city. 50 kilometers is a good distance to put between you and them, and a good point before you get tired. And there's the burial place of Moses, and where else would you want to put the 10 Commandments but with Moses? However, there is a problem with the fact that the Apocrypha are called the Apocrypha because they're not considered genuine, divinely inspired sources. So even the Catholic Church says these things aren't trustworthy, they could just be made up by humans. So there's 3 stages to this. First, you've got to believe the Ark exists, then you've got to believe the Apocrypha are correct, then you've got to believe Tom Crotzer has actually found it.
Yeah, it's a lot to believe. However, setting that all aside, I do think that this makes a lot of sense as a location. But I don't know about you, but I would say this is a good starting point. Yeah. Let's look at some of the other locations.
Yeah, what comes next?
The Orthodox Tewahedo Church claimed to possess the Ark of the Covenant in the small town of Aksum in Ethiopia. The object is allegedly kept under guard in a treasury near the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion. The story of how the Ark came to Ethiopia is told in the Kebra Nagast, Ethiopia's chronicle of its royal line, which was written in the 13th century. It was written to legitimize the new Solomonic dynasty which ruled the Ethiopian Empire after its establishment in 1270 AD. It claims the Ark of the Covenant was brought to Ethiopia by the son of the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon. Menelik I brought the Ark to Ethiopia with divine assistance 3,000 years ago and left a forgery in the temple in Jerusalem. In 2007, a Smithsonian journalist went on a pilgrimage to Ethiopia to find the Ark of the Covenant, but was turned away by the leader of the church, Abun Paulos, who said that even he was still forbidden from seeing it. According to Italian press, on the 25th of June 2009, Abun Paulos apparently announced that he would unveil the Ark of the Covenant to the world. The following day, no announcement occurred and the leader denied ever making such a claim. Is the Ark of the Covenant actually located in Ethiopia?
So problem number one, having just spoken about the Apocrypha being problematic,
yes,
we've got this chronicle of Kebra Nagast from the 13th century,
yes,
which is written to legitimize the kings. And if the Catholic Church has issues with the Apocrypha, which are written much closer to the time, then this 13th century document, no way can it be reliable.
As well, if you're trying to solidify your power to say that we brought the Ark of the Covenant here, you know, it's a hugely symbolic triumph, I guess. However, believers in the Chronicles do say that they're actually copied from a 4th century manuscript that was in turn based on a far earlier account. So this is basically just the first time they wrote them down. But everyone knew it. It was just common knowledge. And in fairness, this isn't actually the earliest written account that we have. So we've got a document from the late 12th century from a priest named Abu al-Makarim, who claims that the Abyssinians possess also the Ark of the Covenant.
Oh, okay.
So
the tradition goes back beyond the 13th century.
Exactly, so it shows that they didn't just make it up for this document. So we can't ignore that, but we also can't ignore the fact that the Ark of the Covenant isn't hidden in Ethiopia. It's in a church, like a specific church. They know that they have it, they guard it, but no one's allowed to see it, not even the leader of the church. They only have one person,
one guy,
who can see it.
The Guardian of the Ark.
Yeah, they're called the Guardian of the Ark.
They don't have another name, apparently, according to a Smithsonian journalist who had to meet them. Like, beggars belief, if you have the Ark of the Covenant, prove it to everybody.
Exactly right.
You know, it smells like a hoax, like they're exploiting pilgrims to go and donate or whatever. But then again, if you believe in the Ark of the Covenant and you believe in the power of God, and the Ark of the Covenant contains the power of God, and you are there confronted by it, maybe there is something about the Ark of the Covenant that means nobody should see it.
Yeah, you want to keep it secret. You don't want anyone to see it.
I mean, I'm not sure this is more convincing than evidence 1, Mount Nebo, to be honest.
That does make a bit more geographic sense, although Ethiopia is still in that region.
Yes, it's not impossible. It's a good story. Go look it up. It's quite interesting.
But what do you guys think? Is the Ark of the Covenant in Ethiopia? Let us know in the poll above.
Another theory places the Ark in Ireland, at a site known as the Hill of Tara. The Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar allegedly sent Jeremiah and his men with the Ark across the sea to Europe, where they looked for a safe place to hide it. To support this theory, there is apparently mention in Irish historical documents of a Hebrew named Earbanel migrating to Ireland around the late 580s BC. In 1899, the Anglo-Israel Association from London went on an expedition to the Hill of Tara in the hopes of excavating the site and finding the Ark. However, this sparked mass protests in Ireland, as the Hill of Tara was seen as a hugely important historical site, and is documented in the 11th century text, the Book of Invasions, as the seat of the High Kings of Ireland. Eventually, the excavators retreated, and the mystery remained unsolved. Does the Ark of the Covenant actually reside in Ireland?
Explain the logic to me, Alex. Why would you send the Ark of the Covenant across the sea, rife with pirates and sea monsters, as you believed at the time, to keep it safe, when you could keep it next to you.
Yeah, that's true. But they had the Ark of the Covenant with them. Maybe they believed God was on their side, or maybe God sent them a message saying, "I've got to get away. I've got to go on holiday. Take me to Ireland."
But yeah, this hill of Tara is the place where they crowned the High Kings of Ireland. There's all kinds of pagan traditions attached to that place, predating Jewish and Christian traditions. So it seems a bit odd that it would be there.
Yes, I mean, this Anglo-Israel Association from London, apparently they traced bloodlines of Anglo-Saxons back to these Hebrew tribes. At that point, they were like, right, well, the Ark of the Covenant's in Ireland. Whereabouts could it be? And they were like, how about the Hill of Tara, this, very culturally significant spot? Tara? That sounds very similar to Torah. It's definitely there. Let's go dig it up. And they went over there, tried to excavate it. It caused mass protests in Ireland. Loads of people got involved. And eventually, they sent back it was cooled off. Maybe they were onto something. And we'll never find out because the excavation was quite rightly cooled off.
True, we will never know.
The location of the Ark of the Covenant remains a mystery. If it did ever exist, it's probable it was destroyed with the destruction of the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem. However, if it did truly possess the power of God, perhaps it did survive and is being kept hidden somewhere today. I think the most likely location we've looked at today is probably Mount Nebo in Jordan.
Yeah, that makes sense. But what do you guys think? Does the Ark actually exist? And if it does, do you think we should really go looking for it? Please let us know in the comments below, as well as any other theories you'd like us to discuss in future videos. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and if you really enjoyed this video, then consider supporting us over on our Patreon page, where we've got some great rewards for our loyal fans. Thanks for watching,
and we'll see you next time.
Welcome to the All-Time Conspiracies podcast with me, Robin. Today are Martin.
Good morning.
And Alex.
Hello there, Robin. You always introduce Martin first.
It's because he's the statesman, the elder statesman.
I'm not bitter at all. It's okay.
At the same time, Alex, it's almost like I have to be a trendsetter. If I say something stupid, then you have to say something stupid too.
That's true.
That's true. And you always follow Martin's lead.
In my other way.
You're such a sheep.
So if I say bonjour, then you might go bonjour too, or something similar.
I regret bringing this up straight away.
Well, to all our listeners and viewers, those of you who are watching us on YouTube or listening to us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Audio Boom, and other platforms,
there are many,
but I can't remember all of them. Welcome again. This week, as always, we'll be looking at an older conspiracy in a bit more depth, and then we'll be looking at news items of the week, and then we'll be finishing on a fun little quiz. But before that, we have a special favour to ask all of you, listening at home or watching us on YouTube. I think it's time. We've been around a while now. The podcast seems to be going well. You guys seem to like it. But
in general,
in general, yeah. There's always room for improvement. But I think one of the areas for improvement is the name. At the moment, it's kind of a dry name. All-Time Conspiracies podcast.
Sounds a little bit corporate, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what it says on the tin. But something interesting. So, all of you listening at home, please go onto our Twitter, go onto our Facebook, or go onto our YouTube and comment on the video with any suggestions.
Yeah, for a name for this
podcast. You have the chance to name this podcast, and then we'll take our favourite suggestions, and we'll have a poll, a vote amongst you next week. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Sounds
I like the idea.
We're not going to do like you can suggest it and then put it in a poll, and then we'll go with whatever the favourite is, because that could lead to some nasty
Voting McBugface.
That's what I was thinking of.
Voting McBugface answers. So I think we'll avoid that.
Yeah, we reserve the right to editorialise. But yeah, please do come in with your suggestions. Again, Twitter, Facebook, or on YouTube.
Or email us if you want to. Alltimeconspiracies at gmail.com.
Or Instagram.
If you're archaic. Or Instagram,
yeah, thank you. So, what news items have you both got for us this week?
Oh, Alex, you go for it.
Well, I wanted to talk about the situation that's happening in Venezuela. This is like a fast-moving situation, and to be honest, by the time this podcast goes out, something drastic could have happened over there. But basically, Maduro, who is the socialist leader of Venezuela at the moment, has kicked out, or he's announced that he's kicking out all of the American diplomats in the country because the US has favoured his opponent over him in terms of who's leading the country.
And then the US has basically responded by saying, no, they don't have to leave because you're not the leader of the country. So it's kind of an escalating situation, and I kind of want to discuss where you think it could lead.
Oh,
I see.
that's a big one.
That's a nice intro. I thought you were just about to go into it. I was like, I think we do the legacy one first. That sounds cool. I mean, mine's a little bit more lighthearted, but it's about the future of flying cars, and there are some developments this week. So Boeing has test piloted their flying car, and I just want to talk a little bit about it and see what you guys think.
That's really cool. I'm really interested in doing that, and yeah, I'm excited to see to discuss that with you guys.
It's 2019. They're 4 years too late.
Exactly. Yeah.
True. Yeah.
And cover-ups. UFOs have. One person who knows just how seriously UFO sightings have been taken by the British authorities is ex-MOD operative Nick Pope.
From 1952 onwards, it was decided that there really needed to be a small unit set up permanently to research and investigate the UFO phenomenon. And really from the 50s right up until 2009, the Ministry of Defence did have a small project looking at the UFO mystery.
Pope and the UFO desk in the 90s, helping add to the thousands of files the Ministry had gathered for decades.
Making his way.
Now that they're being released from the vaults, key UFO eyewitnesses give their side of the stories. And UFO experts, skeptics and believers interrogate just what the MOD was keeping secret. Dr. David Clark is the journalist who helped first persuade the MOD to release the files.
If you look in the files, there are thousands of unusual things people in the sky from right across the British Isles. There's absolutely no doubt that people see things in the sky that they can't identify. They always have done.
January 6th, 1995. Two experienced pilots of a Boeing 737 carrying 60 passengers from Milan to Manchester report a near collision. It's an incredible sighting of an unidentified flying object which sends the authorities into a spin.
In the defence files, there are quite a number of incidents involving near misses between civil aircraft and unidentified flying objects. The most impressive of all was a report that was made by the crew of a British Airways 737.
Speedbird 5061, overhead pylons 9 miles.
They were just about to enter this cloud bank, quite a clear sky, good sort of vision. Suddenly the first officer said he saw this object coming towards him like an illuminated Christmas tree. So low in its approach and so close that he automatically ducked, thinking there was going to be a collision. And this thing just zoomed past, and immediately he turned to the captain and said, "Did you see that?" The captain said, "Yeah, I saw it as well."
Immediately the pilots radioed into Manchester Control Tower.
There's a lot of concern amongst air crews about what damage could be done to their reputation if they became known as, the crew that see flying saucers. So it was interesting in this case that despite that, these two air crew decided that when they landed they were going to file an official air miss report. So that would then trigger a full detailed investigation by the Civil Aviation Authority, which is exactly what happened.
For the first time, the MOD files show how this extraordinary incident sparked a full-scale investigation conducted by aircraft near-miss investigator Anthony Booth.
Well, it was unusual for a start because it was the only one in my memory in 7 years of working in that particular department that I'd actually dealt with something like this. We could talk to the pilots, both the pilots. We would go through looking at radar recordings, RT transcript recordings of the voices of the pilots, recordings of what Manchester Air Traffic Control had to say. We just looked at anything that might shed some light on what this object might have been.
The pilots now refuse to talk publicly about the near crash, but the MOD files recall what they told Anthony Booth at the time.
My attention was initially focused on the glare shield in front of me, but I was diverted by something in my peripheral vision. The object had a number of small white lights, rather like a Christmas tree. The high speed of the object, although unable to estimate its distance, it was very close. There's a transcript of the conversation between the captain of the 737 and ground control.
So this is Speedbird 5061. Would you possibly go down the right-hand side, just above us, very fast?
And Manchester immediately come back and say, well, there's nothing seen on radar.
Was it an aircraft? Well, it had lights. It went down the starboard side very quickly.
Manchester say, and just above you?
Just slightly above us, yes.
Manchester then advised them to keep an eye out for anything, but they can't see anything at all. It must have been very fast.
We'll go down very quickly after it passed you, I think. Okay, well, there you go.
The Manchester control tower could not find any radar signal. To radar expert Doug Robb, this is extraordinary.
It says the likelihood of such activity escaping detection is remote, as the area is well served by several radars, and any movement at the levels in question would almost certainly have generated a radar response. Nothing was seen.
So what was it that avoided radar detection? The MOD files show that the investigators and pilots considered all the possibilities.
Was a hang glider? Right, he's suicidal.
Hang glider would not be picked up by normal radar, no.
Comet? No, I don't think so.
A meteor could be detected on re-entry if the radar was looking exactly in the right direction as that piece of debris went past at some speed.
Military? Maybe, but I didn't recognise it. But we're near a major airport. It would have shown up on the radar response. Spy plane? I don't think so. It didn't look like a stealth.
Stealth aircraft would not be picked up by normal radars. If a spy plane's being kept secret, it's not going to be flying where people can see it. And certainly nowhere near airliners.
UFO? Daft. I don't know.
These pilots are not lying. They did have an unusual experience, which to them remains baffling.
The files show the investigation seriously analysed the possibility of military activity. But they found no evidence from any official source.
It seems most unlikely that such a flight would have been conducted so close to a busy international airport.
So what was it? We revealed the conclusion, locked away in the MOD vaults since 1995, reached by Anthony Booth's investigation.
Most of the incidents that we looked at, we could arrive at some conclusion, definite conclusion, but in this case, we couldn't really. We had to come up with an assessment of cause and risk. Both the risk and the cause were unaccessible.
Degree of risk, unaccessible. Cause, unaccessible. Really, that statement is really, really unusual to find that in an official air miss report, and it's basically saying we don't have a clue what was seen.
They'll say back at BA. I think they might rib us about this one.
At the end of their the summary of the working group's discussions, it says that there is no doubt that these pilots both saw an object and that it was of sufficient significance to prompt an air miss report. Unfortunately, the nature and identity of this object remains unknown. To speculate about extraterrestrial activity, fascinating though it may be, is not within the group's remit and must be left to those whose interest lies in this field.
To some ufologists like Nick Pope, the absence of any real conclusion leaves serious and unanswered questions.
Now, to me, this was quite extraordinary. UFO does not mean alien spacecraft, but clearly, in some people's minds, whether it was the pilot and the first officer, or whether it was the investigators at the Civil Aviation Authority or the Ministry of Defence, clearly somebody was thinking, well, maybe, just maybe, this is something extraterrestrial.
I can't speculate on what it was, I really can't. I mean, I don't know to this day what it was. All I know is that we can't assume we know everything in this day and age. There may be things that we don't know about.
The Manchester near-miss investigation shows just how seriously unexplained sightings were taken by the MOD. But the UFO desk had been receiving reports from pilots for decades. The files reveal sightings during World War II, and in some cases these were considered so grave they were referred right to the top of government. The newly released UFO files confirm what many experts suspected. The British government was investigating unexplained sightings as far back as World War II.
I don't talk about it too much to people, only close friends who experienced perhaps flying during the war.
Spring 1944. Britain was engaged in heavy bombing raids over Germany. Rumours of strange, unidentified missiles were getting through to top command. Considered a threat to public morale, the MOD files reveal that the order to keep them secret came right from the top. Sightings such as the one seen by gunner Bernard Dye.
Now I have here a personal wartime diary. I'll read you an entry which I wrote on the 26th of April. Operation Essen. 300 aircraft raided Essen.
Dye then recorded the most extraordinary sight.
By unidentified objects, which I describe as just red balls of fire.
This is the first time Bernard Dye has spoken on television about what happened that night.
We left the target area and we were heading back towards Mildenhall, our base. We were heading across France. Everything appeared to be peaceful. Suddenly I saw 3 balls of fire coming up from below and reported this to our pilot, Arthur Horton, on the intercom. A few seconds afterwards, the rear gunner, Brian Harper, he observed 2 more red balls of fire. Immediately, Arthur was a bit perturbed, and were they fighters? No, not fighters, Arthur, just balls of fire coming towards us. I said to Arthur, no, evasive action, corkscrew, starboard, go, go, go. We travelled over 300 miles per hour. The aircraft was shaking like a leaf, and still they were following. The pilot was getting worried about burning the engines out. Engineer, Dave, what about the engines? Never mind the engines, skipper. Keep going, or something to that effect. The words were rather rude. It certainly gave me and the crew the willies to see them. After a short distance, these 5 red objects, they just got slower, and the red lights disappeared into the blackness below, and we got safely home. Well, when we got back to Mildenhall, our base, each crew was interrogated by intelligence officers, and they just laughed at us. And this upset the pilot, and he said, "You wouldn't bloody well have been laughing if you'd have been sitting with us in the aircraft."
What did Gunner Bernard Dye think they were?
Didn't know what to think, but I thought they were just a new weapon that the Germans had invented.
Bernard Dye was not alone. Other World War II aircrew had also reported unexplained sightings, and we now know that at least one of these reports was suppressed, and the order to do so came right from the top. Wartime Prime Minister Winston Churchill was so terrified the report would leak out, he ordered a 50-year blackout.
Mr. Churchill declared that the UFO incident should be immediately classified for at least 50 years, and its status reviewed by a future Prime Minister.
Churchill's order refers specifically to a late World War II sighting made by a British aircrew returning from a reconnaissance mission over Germany. The files record,
"My grandfather was present during a debate about an unexpected incident experienced by an RAF bomber crew."
The MOD files show that the story originates from the grandson of Churchill's bodyguard, who had been present at an urgent meeting between the Prime Minister and the US commander of the Allied forces, General Eisenhower, who discussed the incident together.
He was writing in to see if the ministry could confirm this story, that this guy who was the bodyguard was present at a discussion between Winston Churchill and Eisenhower about a mysterious incident when the crew of a Royal Air Force reconnaissance aircraft had seen this metallic object that had appeared by the side of their aircraft, and it followed the aircraft, and it behaved in a way that was completely unexplainable in terms of it being a German aircraft or any other sort of Nazi flying machine that they were aware of.
A leading aircraft expert was also at the meeting.
He dismissed any possibility that it could be a missile, since a missile could not suddenly match its speed with a slower aircraft and then accelerate again.
Churchill was determined this would go no further.
Another person at the meeting raised the possibility of an unidentified flying object, at which point Mr. Churchill declared that the incident should be immediately classified.
But the file goes further. One extraordinary line explains just how fearful Churchill was of public reaction to this UFO sighting, if it ever got out.
This event should be immediately classified, since it would create mass panic amongst the general population and destroy one's belief in the Church.
But the files also reveal that this wasn't the first time Churchill had got embroiled in UFO sightings.
In October 1912, there was sightings of mysterious lights in the sky over the dockyards of Sheerness in Essex. Winston Churchill was the First Lord of the Admiralty, and he had to look into this, and Churchill had to admit in Parliament that he couldn't explain what had been seen.
The files show that even after the war, Churchill took a personal interest in unexplained sightings.
In the aftermath of the sightings in Washington, D.C. in 1952, that made all the news headlines, Winston Churchill again became interested and sent a memo to the Secretary of State for Air. What does all this stuff about flying saucers amount to? What can it mean? What is the truth? Let me have a report at your convenience.
Until now, Gunner Bernard Dye never knew there were other World War II sightings that Churchill wanted kept secret at such a critical time in the war. We show him the newly released MOD file on Churchill.
But after reading this report, it sounds, really identical to what we witnessed and saw that night. I haven't heard of this before, but it doesn't surprise me that he was told about it, because things happened during the war years, and there were other objects obviously appeared.
It's interesting that during the 1940s there were a very large number of sightings reported by aircrew, and there are various Royal Air Force files in the National Archives that detail some of these reports. Rocket phenomena they were described as, but they were never able to explain them. And at the end of the war, when they debriefed some of the Luftwaffe pilots, they said that they'd seen very similar things themselves, and they thought they were Allied secret weapons.
So is there an explanation as to what the aircrew saw? Dave Clark has his own theory.
They just thought that it was a combination of misperception on part of the aircrew. They were expecting enemy action because they were so charged up on adrenaline.
UFO or not, the files show that the World War II leaders were desperate to keep such sightings away from the public. The next file reveals how, even decades later, the government was still panicking about UFOs. Many UFO experts believe that the Pitlochry file illustrates one of the most significant UFO conspiracies of recent times. It involves photographs of an unidentified object captured flying over a remote Scottish valley. The photos were sent to the MOD, but mysteriously went missing. Journalist Mark Pilkington had spent years trying to track down these UFO images.
The Pitlochry photographs in the MOD files date back to the 4th of August 1990, when two witnesses on the A9 near Calvine, near Pitlochry, allegedly saw a large diamond-shaped craft hovering in the air for about 10 minutes and took 6 photographs of it. And the object that they claimed to have seen was accompanied by 2 aircraft, which the MOD later identified as Harriers.
The photographer has never been identified. He sent the 6 photographs to the Scottish Daily Record newspaper. The paper never ran the story. Instead, they referred them to the MOD for investigation.
The Ministry of Defence took their own copies of the photographs, which have since disappeared. They, according to the files, sent the original negatives back to the Scottish Daily Record, which inexplicably never ran a story on the subject and never published the photographs, and presumably returned them to the 2 men whose names have been removed from the file, so we can't ask the 2 men. So a mystery piled upon mystery.
All that remains in the files is a photocopy of the alleged photographs. Ufologists later mocked up this photo of what was seen. But Nick Pope dealt with the original photos and file when he worked behind the MOD desk.
Both the Defence Intelligence Staff and the Joint Air Reconnaissance Intelligence Centre analysed this very carefully, and the consensus was clear on this. This was a real object. It was maybe 25, 30 metres in diameter. I sat down with my opposite number from the Defence Intelligence Staff at a briefing about UFOs. We discussed this photograph extensively. This was something that was of defence interest, because clearly it could do something that we couldn't, and we wanted that technology.
The MOD was determined to play down the incident.
There's an interesting briefing by the Ministry of Defence press office on defensive lines to take if these photographs made it into the newspapers, and they were asked questions about this. And there's a list that basically says that we have looked at the photographs and no definitive conclusions have been reached regarding the large diamond-shaped object. And if they were pressed by the media, they were told to say all sighting reports received by the Ministry are referred to the staff in the departments which are responsible for the air defence of the UK.
During his time with the Ministry, Pope had a blown-up copy of the photograph on his office wall, until it was personally taken down by his superior.
One suggestion was that this was a secret prototype American spy plane. My head of division convinced himself that this probably was some secret aircraft or drone, and he ordered that this be removed.
We know from the files that there was a lot of internal discussion about, were the Americans flying this incredible spy plane, and if so, why had they not asked for permission, for this thing to fly through British airspace?
Journalist Mark Pilkington believes that events at the time could well have influenced what people thought they had seen.
This was just 2 days after the first Gulf War had broken out, and there were certainly great deployments of aircraft towards the Middle East, and the UK was a kind of sort of stop-off point and a sort of launch pad for a lot of those aircraft.
The MOD were clearly worried about public reaction, just as Churchill had been 4 decades earlier. So was there a cover-up by the MOD over the mysterious Pitlochry photographs?
There's a possibility that the Ministry of Defence destroyed these images, possibly because they thought that they were some American spy plane that they'd rather we didn't know about, or maybe if this thing genuinely remained unexplained, because we simply didn't want the embarrassment of saying that there might be things in our airspace with speeds and manoeuvres that exceed everything that we've got, and yet which remain unexplained.
However, all we're basing this on, we should make clear, is a very grainy, fuzzy black and white image that, for all I know, could have been drawn by a child with crayons.
Mark Pilkington is still looking for the real Pitlochry photographs to find out just what did put Britain's defences to the test. But 6 years later, on Britain's east coast, another UFO sighting sparks off a full-scale military investigation and a direct challenge to the Secretary of State for Defence. In 1996, the Ministry of Defence was drawn into a serious breach of UK defences by a UFO over East Anglia. MOD files reveal it not only involved the police, Coast Guard and RAF, but a call to the Defence Secretary to scramble jet fighters.
I'm very concerned about an incident that occurred off the East Anglian coast recently involving a visual unidentified flying craft sighting that was correlated by various different military radar systems. Why weren't our jets scrambled?
It was one of the biggest UFO scares ever. And it all started one quiet October night on the East Coast.
Oh my
It was the police officers, actually, who phoned in the first report. So there's an extract from that. In the early hours of the morning, the police are saying we can see a red and green rotating light in the sky directly southeast from Skegness. It looks to be high in the sky directly over the Wash.
The patrol officers reported the sighting to the station sergeant.
I immediately phoned it through to the Skegness control room, who relayed it onto Great Yarmouth Coast Guard Maritime Rescue, suspecting it might be an incident over the sea.
We had a report at about 3:15 local time from Skegness Police, and they could actually see this light in a southeasterly direction. We were uncertain of what it was at the time, and we immediately made a report to the local air defence radars to see if they could see anything.
The call went through to RAF Neatishead, the most important air defence centre in southern England.
Christi radar has a contact bearing at 221 degrees at...
They noticed that on one of the radars, a blip that they couldn't identify that wasn't an aircraft.
Could the mysterious radar blip and the strange lights seen by the police be the same thing? Panic calls from the public started to come in.
No, I don't think they're invading.
A call was put out to shipping to keep a lookout for unidentified lights. Then a tanker came back.
We're seeing a group of lights above the Wash. The vessel at sea was the Connor Coast, and she was in much this sort of area.
At 3:50 a.m., Patrol Officer P.C. Leyland rushed onto the police station roof to video the strange lights and managed to capture 5 minutes of footage, now showing a single stationary white light. News of the sighting spread quickly through the UFO grapevine.
The transcript of the conversation between the Coast Guard and the police and the trawler crew was leaked to the local news, and it suddenly became this huge UFO incident that got to the attention of the local MP.
The sighting gathered such momentum, even local Labour MP Martin Redmond got embroiled and started asking difficult questions.
Martin Redmond said, look, you've got police officers seeing UFOs, you've got Royal Air Force officers tracking them on radar, and yet you don't even get the aircraft in the air to take a look at this thing.
Here's a copy of the letter that Martin Redmond MP sent to the Right Honourable Michael Portillo, Secretary of State for Defence. And he says, I'm very concerned about an incident that occurred off the East Anglian coast recently involving a visual unidentified flying craft sighting, which was correlated by various different military radar systems. While I'm interested in finding out what was seen, my primary concern stems from the absolute shambles that such an event seemed to cause. So he's really sort of having a go at the Ministry of Defence and saying, why didn't you react to this? What are the RAF doing? So this really stung the RAF.
The files reveal a picture of chaos. The letter sparked off an MOD investigation to explain the RAF's persistence. Doug Robb was operations manager on the night. We showed him the MOD findings. He wasn't surprised by the conclusions.
This diagram is the radar plots of Boston on that night. In summary, it shows that Claxby picked up the object, but it didn't move. It was on land. And after investigation, it was decided that it was the church tower, the Boston Stump, as it's known.
The files were certain this was the culprit.
The church is known in aviation circles as the Boston Stump, and appears occasionally on some radars in certain radar propagation conditions.
They said that this was a completely separate phenomenon to the bright stationary lights that had been seen by the police from Boston and Skegness and by the tanker crew.
The report concluded there was no justification to order the scramble of RAF fighters, much to the chagrin of the local MP, Martin Redmond.
You'd scramble for a high-speed incoming aircraft 200 miles away, but you're not going to scramble aircraft for a fixed object on land. I mean, what's the threat?
If what the radar picked up was indeed a church, what then were the mysterious lights seen by the police and the tanker crew? The MOD scrutinized the police video footage.
It suggests a distant celestial source.
The MOD sent the footage onto the Royal Greenwich Observatory for analysis. Their report has been kept buried since 1996 in the MOD files. UFO and astronomy expert Ian Whitpath was shown their conclusions and the police video.
If you look at the police video, you can see it's just a bright dot of light just sitting there, not appearing to do anything. So, to me, this shows that even the most impeccable witnesses can actually make what is really a basic mistake, which is just misidentifying bright celestial objects. Well, the most common culprit is the planet Venus. In fact, it's called the Queen of the UFOs, and this is because it's the brightest object in the night sky after the sun and the moon, which could have been what the police were seeing.
He also believes there's an explanation for the colours of the lights.
When the camera zooms in, very often the camera will completely lose focus, and you can actually see some odd shape to the light, which is actually the diaphragm of the camera.
We sailed from But this doesn't explain what the tanker crew observed. The MOD investigation found that they saw light coming from a different direction to Venus, and they were baffled.
These lights remain unexplained.
But expert Ian Whitpath believes there is an answer.
The object that the tanker saw to the north, I think, was another bright star called Vega, which was also just appeared to twinkle and flash multicolored lights.
UFO expert and skeptic Dave Clark believes there is a reason why this escalated into such a major incident.
This happened in 1996, which was the very height of the popularity of the X-Files series on TV. It was the biggest sort of year, the 1996-97, in terms of number of reports they received since 1978.
So is this case closed for East Anglia? Or will more mystery emerge, just as it has, with one of Britain's most celebrated cases that refuses to go away, the Welsh Roswell. In 1974, in North Wales, thousands of people experienced a violent earth tremor and lights were seen falling from the sky. Some ufologists believe a UFO crashed, and there's been a cover-up ever since of the Welsh Roswell.
Oh, a heck of a bath, yeah. Oh yes, it's like a tremor. It was in the house, shook the houses, really new houses. They seem to come right on top of the head until the house is coming down.
So this is what it's pretty dark in there, so this camera is supposed to have...
24th of January 1974 at 21:50 GMT.
Hey, woman!
5 bodies spectacularly incandescent were observed traversing the sky.
New information has been revealed that opens the mystery further. Named as one of the main witnesses in the Bowen incident is Hugh Lloyd, then a 14-year-old farmer's son.
You see it?
Just after 8:30 p.m., Hugh's family felt the massive earth tremor. It was a frightening experience. Almost 40 years on, Hugh still remembers that day as if it were yesterday.
And straight away the whole place started shaking very violently. The light flickered and the lights in the picture on television, snow on the screen, but we were all frightened, we didn't have a clue what it was. And Enoch said it must be an explosion, and then the phone started around, neighbours, phones, asked, did you feel that? And then roughly about 20 minutes, there was a knock on the door. And there was a police officer. And he said, we've had reports as a plane crash come down on the bedroom, and we'd like to commandeer your Land Rover to go up there. Me being 14, I said, well, Enoch can put it, try it.
Remember those kids that got stuck in Thailand?
I got up the mountain about half a mile, maybe 3/4. We done up the track and we stopped, got out and torches, and it was very quiet and very dark, but nothing to be seen.
Are we going to touch?
One of them said, there's nothing here, it's too quiet, we can't see anything, we might as well go down. So we turned back to the vehicles, and as we were approaching the vehicles, we saw this very bright white light up the valley. Just behind those trees there, just to the left, in the valley between those two mountains. A very bright white light coming up from the ground.
Stayed there too long, though,
pointing upwards, but it was very, very bright. I knew it was coming from the ground, but we couldn't actually see the source of the light because it was, in the valley itself, being hit, and the light didn't look like a plane crash. It was too white for the fire. It didn't last for very long, 20 seconds was at the most.
They searched the mountainside, but there was no sign of a crash. So what was the light?
So it's low tide right now.
Ufologist Andy Roberts has researched the Berwyn UFO for years. Although a skeptic, he admits there is a central mystery to the incident involving another key witness.
A village nearby called Llanderfel, and there's a district nurse called Pat Evans. She felt the explosion there, and because she was a nurse and had all the medical equipment, thought if a plane's crashed, I could get up there and give much needed help until the emergency services arrived.
Pat Evans was with her two teenage daughters, 4 miles from New Lloyd when the earth tremor hit.
It's really cool, and then we're going to go around the other side of the island. There's a couple more moms, and we're going to
So she picked up her 2 young daughters, got in the car, drove the 10-15 minute drive up onto the B4391 road, expecting to see an aircraft crashed in flames.
This is the road that she was driving on, and it's a road that she knew very well, so she had no problems driving up here at night. And obviously she was out there looking for what she thought was going to be a plane disaster. And just as she came out from the other side of this copse of tree, she was absolutely astonished to see far across the hills to the left a huge ball of red, white, orange, pulsating light.
Whatever the object was, it was too far from the road to be reached on foot. Pat and her daughters watched, astounded at the ball of light, slowly pulsating and changing colour.
She described it as being half the size of the moon, and around this object were moving torchlights and vehicle lights. She realised that it clearly wasn't a crashed aircraft, and that someone or some people were there attending to whatever it was. And realising that, she drove back home and went to bed, and to this day is completely mystified by what it was.
So what did Pat Evans and Hugh Lloyd see that night? We reveal that even the arrival of the mysterious men in black couldn't provide all the answers. The unidentified sightings by Pat Evans and Hugh Lloyd in Berwyn, Wales in 1974 have gone down in UFO folklore. The recently released MOD files have added even more mystery. Researchers from the British Geological Survey were quickly dispatched to Berwyn to investigate an earth tremor that had registered 3.5 on the Richter scale.
Immediately after the earthquake, we were getting a lot of reports, some of them rather complex ones about lights in the sky, lights on the hill. So I brought a small team of people down to ask the local people around here what they'd seen, what they'd heard, what they'd felt.
The British Geological Survey team have become known in Berwyn legend as the Men in Black, as they were dressed in dark suits, official-looking, and were going door to door.
Some people seem to think the whole event was rather suspicious, and that we, simple scientists from the Geological Survey, had something to do with suspicious events around here.
Files containing Chris's notes recall his interview with nurse Pat Evans, who saw the unidentified light.
I have here the notes that I made when I talked to Pat Evans. She felt the shaking, but also she was very concerned about lights that she saw in the sky. She thought there was a big red light, like a glowing red fire. This is a copy of one of the maps that we, with our team, used when we were going around the area talking to people, and we were able, therefore, to put on the map exactly where we got that interview from, and therefore exactly what that person saw, heard and felt.
This British Geological Survey map, buried in the vaults, is a revelation. It shows the anomalous lights seen by Pat Evans and Hugh Lloyd. Both appeared in the same small area of hillside at the same time. Ufologist Andy Roberts returns to the same spot on the mountainside where Pat and her daughter saw the UFO, and where Pat Evans told her story to Andy Roberts in 1998.
When I brought Pat Evans up onto this mountain road in 1998 and she told me her story then, I photographed her, and the photograph that I took showed her pointing to where she saw what she saw in 1974, and judging by this photograph she was pointing over there, and which we know is where the police and farmers were searching that night.
Pat Evans was on the Shanganuk to Walshport Road, which is just just beyond the forestry there. So if she was there, she probably saw the same lights as we saw. You know, because just dead in line.
So they had to put down some mooring, so they asked.
I'm sure I'm nearly positive that's the same lights she saw.
The recent files show the MOD's explanation for the sudden explosion and mysterious lights.
Subsequent search of the hillsides in question revealed no sign of impact, however. The Meteorological Office considered that these sightings could have been occasioned by a bolide, that is to say, a meteor which enters the Earth's atmosphere and burns up before reaching the ground. A private investigation done on behalf of the British Astronomical Society concluded, however, that the meteor may in fact have disintegrated over Manchester, and that its appearance was preceded at 8:30 p.m. by an earth tremor in the Berwyn Mountains with which it has no connection.
In regards to the UFO phenomenon. So if you capture anything amazing, submit it to us via Skype, Facebook, Twitter, and we'll be checking out your incredible videos. Keep your eyes on the skies, everybody. My name's Blake Cousins, and we'll see you again next time. All right, we're here going up the world's steepest road in the United States of America. And let me tell you, it's a hairball situation. I'm going to put it into third gear, and we're going to take this all the way. Like I said, world's steepest road in the state of the United States of America. Here we go. Let's gun it. Everybody hang on now. Okay. Now this is about almost, I'd say 60% incline right there, and we just hurdled it. Now look at this. We're in four-wheel drive lockdown in our Wrangler, and it's pretty much handling it quite well.
We were using fenders to keep their
Everybody,
steel
thanks
hull
for
from
joining us here at Third Phase Moon, and if it wasn't for you watching the skies, submitting your incredible videos, wow, we wouldn't be here like I was just saying earlier. Everybody, take care. My name's Blake Cousins, and we'll see you again next time.
This is Blake Cousins, founder of Third Phase of Moon. Welcome to the show, Blake.
Hey, thanks, Dr. J. Great roundtable tonight. I wanted to get to, we're working on something special, something incredible. It's DARPA. What's DARPA up to? We at Third Phase of Moon want to find out what's going on at the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. The DARPA is up to something big. They've been doing this since 1958. Their headquarters are in Arlington, Virginia, and they have 240 employees, and they have $1 billion budget. These aircraft that DARPA's using and building from reverse Elling technology, it's something incredible, something that needs to be investigated. We're looking for people that are on the inside of DARPA. There's only 240 employees. What's the turnover rate over there? Somebody has had to have been fired from there. Want to speak out. We're looking for DARPA employees that want to talk and share what's going on over there, because something's going on. These aircraft are something straight out of a Star Trek movie, but they don't look like UFOs. UFOs and these other videos that we get right here at Third Phase Moon, they're unconventional. DARPA keeps it conventional, but still there's that edge. Is anybody on the, what do you think about
I've
that?
actually worked on a few DARPA projects, and usually they're cutting edge. So the stuff that I was doing was semiconductor stuff. Typically, always trying to push the envelope, and that's typical of DARPA projects, is they're always trying to push the envelope of whatever particular technology. So
DARPA, I think what they're doing is reverse engineering, obviously. I think it's a given. Obviously, we've had craft since at least 1936 Hitler had. We've had them since 1942, the Cape Girardi incident in Missouri, unless you want to go back to the 1896 case in Aurora, Texas. But obviously to say that we have had ET craft and have not reverse engineered them would be very stupid.
Well, that's, if you want to look for the ET connection, if you look at Corso's book, The Day After Roswell, he says that the technologies that were released were semiconductors, night vision, and lasers. Right, exactly. There's a trifecta.
Kevlar too.
Well, Kevlar, yeah. But from my standpoint, I was happened to be in the optics industry, which dealt with semiconductors, lasers, and night vision. So that was kind of, you know.
And he seeded that technology into what we're using right now.
Of course, feeds it. They basically do they fund the high tech, the state of the art stuff, and then that all filters down.
Mr. Kelly, let me ask you. So you say yourself you work on the DARPA project?
I worked on when I was in the optics industry. You know, making parts for photolithography systems and stuff like that, microphotolithography, semiconductors, servicing the semiconductor industry. Several projects that came through there over the years were DARPA, but typically, I can tell you exactly what they were. They had to do with printing the mask of the semiconductors. In other words, the master patterns for the photomasks. And
let me ask you, thanks for coming back on Thursday Moon. There was a lot of comments on the Illuminati came forward, and you gave a lot of information. People were really interested in your insight. But when the annual budget claimed by Wikipedia is that it's $1 billion and there's only 240 employees. That's accurate?
Blake, let me jump in for that. I got to tell you, is obviously what's written as the budget is not the real budget. And I know this for a fact because this SEAL, who's not into conspiracies or anything at all, he was just a normal Navy SEAL who was in Vietnam from 66 to 69. And then he did 2 mercenary missions. And he said every single mission during the SEALs and the mercenaries after came from the CIA. Well, both mercenary missions were to guard giant cargo ships full of coke. 2 coming to the U.S., one from Peru, one from Colombia.
But that's not DARPA, John.
But that's Black Ops.
A lot of people,
that's funding Black Ops, though.
Well, you see, but that's another thing. I was involved in that too. But the DARPA thing is different. DARPA really does go out to industry in the form of grants and contracts to make advanced stuff. And assemble advanced stuff, and so it's very much a technical construction arm of the, and if you will, a de-engineering farm too, no doubt. Certainly, obviously they were de-engineering equipment, and that's why they were able to direct this. They knew what to build. They could write these specifications, advanced specifications, because they knew what direction they were trying to head with this stuff.
There's a lot of places in Thailand where people
that's exactly, you hit it right on the button, because in 1958 they originally established DARPA as their original mission to prevent surprise, like a launch from a Sputnik, or Soviets had beaten us to space, but now they're also creating this to surprise their enemies, and this keeps changing. They actually changed their name from ARPA to DARPA. When you were working there, was it ARPA or DARPA?
Okay, well that's what you're talking about. That's the predecessor to the internet, where they had the ARPANET.
That's the way she likes to cook. I don't know.
But gosh, what was I going to say? The thing about this, it's a little bit different. You know, the technology stuff.
I was looking at
I'm sorry, I kind of...
Maxwell on DARPA. Maxwell, I want to ask you on DARPA and also HARP, because you mentioned about the ley lines of the Earth. And there seems to be a natural energy why there's cities at certain places and, 33 degrees and all the rest of that. I know you know about that kind of stuff. So what's your take on both DARPA and HARP and the ley lines? Go ahead.
John Beard and Dr. Bob Beth were talking about ELF, the extreme low frequency and the woodpecker effect coming out of Russia. Woodpecker is still, I guess, in operation. You hear it on shortly. And so the whole concept of using down frequencies and high technology, what they call over the Atlantic radar, to create earthquakes, to create hurricanes and volcanoes, I don't know. There's all kinds of high technology that's been known for many years, and Tesla was doing that kind of stuff a long time ago. And so the guy you really want to listen to on that kind of stuff is Colonel Tom Bearden. You can find him on the web, or just listen to some of the stuff he's talking about, that he's talking about.
This is technically a national park in Thailand, so there's an entry fee of 300 baht per person, which is about $10 per person.
Actually do it, and I would throw in something
I can read Thai, totally.
James Bond Island is one of those spots that a lot of people may not know what I'm talking about, but it's a very interesting subject. Just look up woodpecker effect, and you will see that both Russia and America have been using this kind of high technology ELF, extreme low frequency, to cause people to go crazy, causing people to get angry, causing people to become confused electrically. So all of this stuff's been known, I mean, I'm sure that was enforced as far back as maybe the 40s and 50s, but it started to come out in the 70s. This high technology using electronics to confuse people, to cause cloud, strange cloud formations, and of course that brings in heart. So all of this stuff is very legitimate, it's very, very real, but there's a lot of good stuff out there now, a lot of good information on it now that wasn't there back in the 70s where they were originally talking about.
Look into Bob Beck, guys.
Yeah,
Congress sent Bob Beck to Russia to investigate the woodpecker. He basically smuggled some gear in there that allowed him to analyze the frequency and figure out what was going on. He was a friend of mine too. He used to hang out at my shop and buy lasers for me to use as pointers at his lectures.
Yeah, commercialized back then.
I loved it. He was a wonderful, wonderful man.
He always wanted the most powerful laser. You know, it had to be twice as powerful as what anybody else had.
They keep changing their story and their name. If you've worked for ARPA or DARPA, we'd like to interview you on Third Phase of the Moon and find out what's going on behind the scenes. Everybody keep your eyes in the sky, and if you captured anything amazing, send it to Third Phase of the Moon via Skype or Facebook. My name's Blake Cousins. We'll see you.
Wow, look at it light that up.
Welcome back to Third Phase of the Moon. My name's Blake Cousins, and we're going over breaking news that we just released on YouTube. Third Phase of the Moon. We're just about to hit 100 million views on our YouTube channel alone. Everybody subscribe to get the latest breaking news about UFOs from around the world. I just want to go over an incredible video just in tonight. We're going to discuss it with Dr. J. Andy Elias and former FBI agent Van Hansen. He went over this video that we're looking at right now. Incredible footage captured from within a plane of what looks to be mysterious lights below. Dr. J, I wanted to get your opinion first of what you thought of this video just into Third Phase.
You know, I honestly, the genuineness of the people on board that were witnessing this craft of the person recording, clearly you could tell because it's a vertical thing, a vertical shot. It's from an iPhone, but obviously, as Ben Hansen said earlier, you know, they could have won an Academy Award. They definitely saw something out there. I don't think it's CGI. It's definitely in the air.
Well, the first thing that I noticed with this is it caught my attention that the light was moving a little bit. It didn't look like it was in conjunction with the camera shake, and I thought, well, this could be CGI, computer generated imaging that is showing what we call an error in tracking. It's when you animate something, you have to anchor it to the rest of the objects or the background in the film. And I was thinking that this object wasn't tracking correctly at first. But the more I looked at this, I realized this didn't appear to be the issue. In fact, it looks as if the light and the way that it wobbles a tiny bit in the first of the 3 videos probably is only due to something we call shutter roll. This is a rolling shutter effect with the CMOS sensors in a lot of cameras, and what ends up happening is sort of a blurring effect, or it looks like the image is wobbling. So The reactions of the people seem pretty genuine to me.
There were arrows painted on the ground.
It actually took a pretty professional job to fake reactions like this that are so spontaneous. They seem appropriate with the background of the chatter and everything you're hearing on the plane. It wasn't over-dramatized. They didn't act as if they were reading from a script. It sounded very legitimate and real to me. So my opinion is that whatever's captured in this video most likely is happening in camera.
It's going towards it. The place has everything from nice big mansions to barely put together shacks. There's a school and a football stadium. There's pretty much anything.
Yeah, we're looking at the videos, and now we're about to enhance it and zoom it in about 2,000% and put some brightness contrast to this, so we can even get a better look at these videos that came in. And there's some new information about what was going on in regards to this, and we can all hear people's reactions in real time. This is something incredible, but they were on their way from a business trip from Vegas to Chicago, and they're thinking this is closer to Vegas. So it was shot in what was it, March or May, 2013. So there's old UFO videos out there. He said he couldn't share it with Third Phase Moon because he had a hard time editing these three clips together and zooming in on the UFO. And that's what we do here. What we do here at Third Phase Moon is analyze these videos. What do you think of looking at the trifecta, John? Like you see it from one light and then it transforms into a triangle formation.
You know, that's definitely not the first of a UFO doing that. As people have seen, and many times they will see one light all of a sudden turn into 3 or 5. They will see one ball or even a cylinder turn into a triangle. So it's not uncommon that they are actually shape-shifting. The other possibility is that they were seeing it as it's coming in through one dimension, possibly as one light, and then as it got closer, it turned into 3, or the other option is it really was 3 objects that came in together, because there are cases in the past, Blake, that did have multiple UFOs stacked together that came forward and then released to multiple.
Wow, look at it light that up. Wow.
It appears to be maybe a half an hour of time. We're looking at something where the sun is probably just set beforehand, and the third video it's actually quite dark. I wouldn't be surprised if this happened over about a half an hour. In the last videos, though, what you'll see is part of the reflection of the inside of the plane. So the other passengers, you're kind of seeing them, you know, backlit and reflecting. So there is some of that, but the object and the light is consistent throughout all the 3 videos. That there's something illuminated. It makes me believe that this is actually happening down beneath and outside of the plane, not an artifact of camera reflection or something inside. Plus you have the witnesses who are corroborating. We're led to believe probably someone in the row behind them or in front of them is also seeing the same thing, which, you know, angles of camera flares and things like that just wouldn't match up. Weather phenomena, I don't think so. The only thing I could think of is a pretty clear day. It didn't look like there was much haze at all. And I don't think that anything such as ball lightning or a weather phenomenon that would be very rare,
the full moon came a little bit early,
you know, would continue, especially for such a great amount of time as what we're seeing over several minutes. And for this thing to kind of undulate, it looks like a snake with a trail of light following behind it, which is very, very strange. So it's a great video. It really is. To me, I'm going to have to put this in the box of I have no clue. This doesn't fit typical UFO description of solid object, of triangular object. It doesn't even fit the description of light anomalies that we're familiar with.
For everybody out there who was on that flight, contact Third Phase of Moon. Whether you were a witness that just heard people saying they saw something, or you were one of the people actually looking out the window, contact Blake Cousins at Third Phase of Moon.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Ben,
Every
for
few years,
joining us
it's time to haul Delos out of the water and give her a coat of fresh water.
Everybody look at the video. We've contrasted it, again, zoomed in, listened to the reactions.
The last time we painted Delos' bottom was in Malaysia, way back in 2015.
Super 8, high
Since
VHS,
then,
Super
we've sailed over
VHS. We want to go over
25,000
and look
nautical
at it,
miles
zoom in on it, because I know
across
there's
2
an
oceans in the
archive of
process.
UFOs.
The little bit of
Still
paint
waiting
still
to be
clinging
seen
on
and
has
shared to the world.
completely lost its
Everybody keep your
anti-fouling
eyes on the skies. My
capabilities,
name's Blake
which
Cousins.
means we
We'll
need to
see you
regularly
again
scrape the hull.
next time.
Now this is what our bottom looks like after only 3 weeks in the tropical waters of Grenada.
Wow, look at it light that up.
We can easily lose a knot or two of boat speed. A fresh coat of paint will mean less scraping and help Delos to slip to the water even easier. This will be my 4th time painting her bottom. In each of the previous times, I used standard anti-fouling. I've tried hard, semi-ablative, and fully ablative paints, all with varying degrees of success, and none of them were perfect. This time I wanted to try something different, something that would last more than a year or two, and most importantly, something that wouldn't leach metals, plastics, or toxic chemicals into the ocean. Alright, let's get started.
So basically try to figure out how much surface area the bottom has.
And tell me, what's the circumstance behind this video? And welcome back to Third Phase.
Yeah, Blake, thanks for having me back. This was shot in 1987, right after I was getting off. But you can also use this handy formula to estimate. It was my first time on the ship with Boss. It comes out to 709 square feet, so pretty close to the measured value.
Okay, Ed, explain, let's backpedal a little bit, because I want to concentrate on this video that we're looking at, and we're zooming in, we're analyzing these photos, and we're not seeing any thing that can say that this is a hoax of any kind. And let me ask you right now, is this a hoax? Because people just want to know this straight up, and we'll move on. There they go. No, this is authentic footage that I shot after being on the ship for the first time. It delivered me back with a feet in my truck. I went back to my truck, grabbed my camera, and I had to backpedal to get some footage before I left.
What's the plan?
All right, Ed, we got to get these questions, the hardcore ones out of the way first. Now let's get into detail.
Before the sandblast, our mission for the morning is to raise our bootstrap, because we've put so much shit on Hitler's the past years that if you can see,
this video right now is water line is taking off and leaving, and you say you're backpedaling, getting the shot. What happened before this on board this ship?
Blake, this was my first time on the ship, and I had seen this ship many times. I think I've sent you other video footage of the ship that I ended up going on with, and the contact I had identified himself as Boss through telepathic communication.
The ladder was up against the hole, like right at the concave.
This was my first time on a ship. Right after I got delivered back through this same beam of light, you see the ship departing with. I was able to get back to my truck.
All my weight went right down onto my heel. And there's like a takes off right clicking sound. I don't think it's broken because I can move it. Yeah.
The ship was about the size of a small house. It was probably about 80 feet to 120 feet in length. And the height of it was maybe 2/3 of that. The beam of light, the light coming off this is something that the video captured that was different in person.
Probably just do some editing.
It seems like it's almost a rocket booster.
Can't even stand on it, and it's useless me being here.
No sound at all, Blake. It didn't make any sound. There was no sound at all, Blake.
You know, we're talking right before you shared the video that you're saying that this isn't you have somebody in your family that
I mentioned that my uncle was a lieutenant in the Air Force during World War II. He was the one that I first saw.
Dust was blasting on the block.
Is it really dusty, or is that close? It happened when I was a young boy. And it happened more than once. It happened with my uncle. And my uncle died at a young age. He was only 66 when he died. I continue to have these visitations, and I continue to have them today. I think the only reason why I have ever had contacts with UFOs and extraterrestrial intelligence is because of my uncle. It makes me think of Boss, because it's the same kind of telepathic communication that happened with my uncle.
Down to the gel coat, and then it just stops there. The sand doesn't penetrate the gel coat.
A few days ago, we posted
How long do you think it'll take?
video of a classic metallic concert
know, it doesn't get much better than this. I didn't get your comments on what the circumstances behind that one, but there's stuff going on in the video. You see apparitions flying by. It almost looks like something's jettisoning out of the UFO. What was going on in this shot right here?
Yeah, Blake, I just dug these up, and this was a great discovery to make again. This came in about 1986. It might have been as early as 1984. There's two of these here, and they're different. They look similar, but they're actually different crafts. But they are in the same area of the country. I was in South Carolina at that time.
He'll swear to never do it again.
You know, I spoke of my uncle in my introduction to these craft through him. That was my first experience. This is experience that I had before. And what I'm coming up with is some interesting stuff. Because I told you the first time we spoke, this is a part of my life, but it's not the only part of my life. And I know I carried a camera on that ship, and I also know that there's a different force of energy working there. So I'll look at my archives and see what I might be able to discover for you. But it's a different
and has served us well.
One where
trouble setting and hard-packed bottom conditions. The new Mantis anchor is a beast and should set like crazy.
As I find this is enjoyable for me. I'm having a good time looking at these old archives and digging into stuff up. And as I said before, this is just a part of my life. Like there's another part of my life.
And most of the time,
you know,
we
when
only
I
use
first
the first 150
experienced the
feet,
UFO
which
with
means
my
that
uncle,
half of it is dragging on
it
the
was
bottom,
not long
while the
after
other
Neil
half just
Armstrong
sits in the
first
chamber.
walked on the moon.
Every so often, we like to end-for-end the
this
chain
just seemed
so that the
normal to me
galvanization wears
when I had
evenly.
this experience with my uncle. But what's happened since that time has been very slow. And
We
that's
also
okay,
spliced an
because it's
additional
just
20
another
meters
part
of
of my
road
life.
onto the chain, which gives us a bit
fact
more
of the
scope,
matter is that,
but even more
you know,
importantly,
we all heard
allows
last
us
week
to
about
cut the anchor away should we need to get away quickly in an
and
emergency.
saying, you know, the aliens are coming.
Figure out a way to manage.
This is common knowledge. The aliens are already here.
How does that make you feel like that? You know, these ETs are making contact with you, and the presidents of the United States can't even prove that ET exists. And Area 51 once held the bodies crashed from Roswell, and they have the alien technology, and presidents can't even be involved with it. That, and you're making contact with them.
Well, Blake, at the risk of sounding arrogant, I'll just tell you, I've had these experiences maybe, we're counting 60 experiences I've had, visitations, being on alien craft, seeing these objects, communicating with Voss, my history. So I don't look at it in terms of the way other skeptics might look. And I truly believe that this is much bigger than any Area 51 or whatever happened with the president. This is much bigger than that kind of detail. They brought me on the ship with Voss, escorting me into another room where they presented to me an image that I saw. I can only describe it as being a hologram, where this image was floating in free space, and this image was me. And it was who I was. That's what they were communicating to me telepathically. They were saying to me that this is you, and this definition of me through this hologram image, it was like a DNA chain, a mathematical formula of my genotype. And what they were communicating to me was that this was in compliance of what they wanted to be. This was welcoming to them. This was friendly to them. This was what they wanted, and this was positive, and they were almost congratulating me for who I was.
We want the details of it, and these photos and videos that you continuously submit. We're looking forward to you keep digging into your archives and sharing what it is. You have Super 8, you need help to recover some film. We'd love to do that. And thanks again for joining us at Third Phase Moon. You keep in touch.
It's my pleasure, Blake. I appreciate Third Phase of Moon and your forum for me to share my archives with, and I'll keep looking to see what I have. Maybe I have something that you're interested in, and we can share with other people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. And we just wanted to do it like we do it at Third Phase of Moon. Share it in real time. Liquid information. It's like a faucet of water continuously streaming live to the people around the world. Everybody keep your eyes on the skies. And if you've captured anything amazing in regards to the UFO phenomenon, submit it to Third Phase via Skype or Facebook. My name's Blake Cousins. We'll see you again next time.
they go. There they go. That's it. See you, boss.
By popular demand, we are pleased to announce the Third Phase of Moon album is finally featured on iTunes. With all your favorite songs and themes you hear on the top UFO channel on YouTube, Third Phase of Moon.
Primer, the barrier coat on yesterday. You're going to do 3 coats of
Out of This World soundtracks composed by master artist Paul Barrett.
and then another gray coat on top of this, and that should seal it.
The primer we're using
With
serves
12
two purposes.
remastered and
First off,
extended
it
cuts
seals the
to
bottom
enjoy.
and prevents moisture from penetrating the gel coat, which
Download
causes
them now
moissaness and
exclusive
blisters.
on iTunes.
Secondly,
Click the link in the
whatever
description
bottom
below.
paint you choose, a good surface to adhere to.
Now listen for yourself, heard by millions around the world. Paul Barrett's album, Third Phase of Moon.
It's the most satisfying. Look at this. How does that feel?
Welcome back to Third Phase of Moon. My name's Blake Cousins, and in this week's episode, we're going over 2 incredible videos submitted to us right here at Third Phase. Now let's get to it. Now for our first video, shot from Austin, Texas by Jason, who describes this incredible object as a sight to behold.
Almost there. How's it?
Notice the light blinking underneath the craft. This isn't no FAA regulated light.
Some of you guys
What
might
is this
know
object?
we've changed to induction stove because our lithium batteries are pumping out so much good power now. We can actually use an induction stove. The oven has been a little bit of a question mark, and we have now bought a toaster oven.
It's basically a small electric air conduction oven, which I think can be really cool. It takes 1300 watts, so it's less than stove usually.
There it goes behind the tree.
Onto the gimbal so that it's 600 stroke. Your Swedish chocolate cheese with that overflow moist to attach arms at the kind of 4 corners of this top bit. I go down and then go underneath this, so it just hangs underneath all of that, and then it gimbals together as one solid swinging chair.
So we've taken all the proper measurements, and now we're just kind of bending these long pieces and cutting them to the right size.
Our metal pieces are all bent up. The only thing is they only had like mild steel, which is not corrosion resistant. So we're just going to put a layer of chrome aluminum is the color of choice because that'll look pretty flashy, I think. And then we already mount it and see what's up.
We tighten up some screws, put some more screws in, put some padding in so it doesn't rattle.
Why a UFO would need landing lights. I wish this thing would focus in a little better.
My vote? I said that's good.
Yes!
Working!
What are you up to now, brother?
Today's step 22 or something on the bottom. And we're going to do the bootstrap today.
Tape looks good. Smoothly.
There he goes behind the trees.
Sweet time.
Now it's time for the satisfying part of removing the tape. Oh, that's a clean line.
Did you learn anything about painting a bootstrap?
Yeah, I think we learned quite a lot. I think we've done the measuring job really well. Like, it doesn't look too uneven. But I think the hard part is actually the taping. We should have done a better job really taping it down. And probably put 2 tapes over each other because the paint became so thick on top that it's like hard to get it off. And then also to not leave the tape for too long up there. So to like tape it, paint it straight away, and then as soon as it's dry, take it down. Because now the glue of the tape is like kind of And when you then need to use like a little tool, the surface becomes uneven.
It's going into that
We
light.
have decided to not just do one stripe on the boot stripe, but to do 2 stripes, one red and one white. So me and Brian just kind of taped it all last night, and my first thing this morning is task number 1, paint the white. So it's actually quite fun. Today we are also doing some gel coating. Brian is re-gel coating the front, and I just did a back step.
And I can't see it. Still see it on film though.
Today is
I can't see it at all.
upgrade Maggie kind of day, and we're going to be adding a tow bar. So much wakeboarding, and now that we have our flow board, it's so nice to be able to tow behind Maggie. We always tow from down here low, and with a flow board, that's especially a problem because
We want to thank Jason all the way from Austin, Texas for submitting his incredible video to us right here at Third Phase of Moon. Now, for our second video, we received a call from Amanda all the way from Michigan while we're live on the radio show, and she submitted this incredible film. Take a look at it.
And we also decided to get some mounts made to get the stand-up paddleboards on the side of the boat so they're not clogging this deck area right here. So
when I first received the video, I didn't notice and realize what Amanda was explaining to me on the radio was that there was a massive skyscraper-sized UFO, triangular in shape, hovering over this mansion.
Two of these. Oh, hello.
Could this be a TR-3B, a reverse-engineered LA military aircraft? You decide.
So, pretty good.
So much space here.
I know.
Look at dance party.
So much room for activities.
The racks that go on the outside, it was like almost $200 US.
No way.
Yeah, we found those little things in the scrap metal behind the yard. 25 EC he sold it to me, so for like $10.
$10 plus padding was like 40 EC and some zip ties.
We're in for about $30.
Sweet.
Said done.
Epic. High five.
Decided to start the next project, which is finding out why the rudder is leaking. There's apparently a nylon nut on the top that can be tightened. I got the special tool sent in from Amel, and I also got new packing material to seal the rudder up. I got to get all this apart. Go from there. This quadrant is really stuck on here. I've been sort of beating it with the hammer and alternating using the gear puller and WD-40. Kind of moving a little bit, but what I've got to do is, it's just never been out, ever. So it's all corroded, so this is the corrosion. I was just seizing that on there. It's been on there for what, almost 19 years. So I've got to get this nylon nut out of there, and then under that should be the packing material, I think. So we'll get this cleaned up. Turns out the packing is really packed in here. Quite tough to get out.
There are 3 layers of packing material, and the idea is to offset the
I thought I was taking a video before.
evenly spaced in the center of an uncut
I
piece.
think I am right
When
now,
the
but
packing's compressed, it makes a watertight seal on the rudder shaft.
it's right above me.
Alright, I got the quadrant all cleaned up and painted the other day. All the rust is gone.
It's hard to tell
Now it's time
how high it
to
is.
see if I can get it all together again.
No. I'll show you the video because right now I am taking a
The
video.
last thing I have to do is test to make sure that there's good continuity.
God, it's going to be on the new. It has to be.
Links are on the rudder.
Somebody else
So there's
has
not
to
a
be
good
seeing
connection
this.
between the bonding system and the zinc, so we can get electrolysis. And 0 ohms.
I'm in Novi,
Which means that we have a good connection.
like in my brother's neighborhood. It's weird.
Call that one done and done. The big question is, how do we paint the squares?
Let me get another.
Mounts are so these
wish you were here. You would be freaking out. Yeah, I'm taking good footage now because there's a perspective, like there's a house in perspective, and now it's kind of going far away now.
And this goes away. This will go. We'll leave these in its place and then we'll paint.
Oh, it's kind of leaving. It's going east. Oh my, they have to know I'm here. Oh my god. I'm seeing my first UFO. Like, no, 100%. There's no way, unless somebody has a remote controlled thing, which there's no, because I still see it. It's
we
like,
wanted to try a different type of bottom paint this time around. But at this point, you can pretty much apply any kind of paint.
What are these strange lights appearing over the planet Earth? Have your cameras ready because we're standing by right here at third phase of moon. Submit it to us via Skype or Facebook. My name's Blake Cousins. We'll see you again next time.
It doesn't release chemicals or metals into the ocean.
We are pleased to announce that third phase of moon album is finally featured on iTunes with all your favorite songs and themes here on the top UFO channel on YouTube. Third phase of moon.
Good, eco-friendly anti-fouling solution.
Out of this world soundtracks composed by master artist Paul Barrett. With 12 remastered and extended cuts to enjoy. Download them now, exclusive on iTunes. Click the link in the description below. Now listen for yourself, heard by millions around the world. Paul Barrett's album, Third Phase of Moon.
I learned from the best. He's got moves.
All the way.
Yeah. Did it. Is that it? Did it. Nice. 2 gallons? 2 gallons. 2 coats, 2 gallons. Yeah. Look at how shiny this thing is. It's like shimmering.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.
Johnny.
We're gonna grease up the prop. It's got these grease zerk fittings on the side. Got my waterproof lithium greasing watch right here. It'll start to force like water and shit out.
Oh, there it comes. Look at all that grease.
So that's the old grease it's forcing out, which is a good sign. The new grease is white. Okay, that's
smooth.
Smooth.
The time has come.
Today is move-in day. We're headed to Delos and everything's done as far as we can do to put her in the water.
We get to go home today.
Yes.
Yay.
It's only been 5 months of backpacks and flights and beds and couches and all-the-way beds and sleeping bags and...
I'm ready. No more.
No more. Excited. It's always a little interesting procedure. Everybody does it a little bit differently. These guys use like this small little flatbed truck because they pack them in so tight together, and then it goes in the travel lift. They know what they're doing, so it's cool.
awesome. The bottom's so shiny and slippery that you can see the reflection of these guys in the bottom. It's pretty funny, actually. How are you feeling about that?
It's good. I always feel a bit like it's a lot of stuff going on right before it happens, you know? It's like, go, 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 go! We have to get down the ladder, and it's always a bit like hectic, but it feels really good. We're ready. We're super ready. Now he's happy.
Always nervous. Scary. It's a lot of weight sitting in that thing, and the bottom of Delos is super smooth. I don't know, man. It's always just crazy machinery and a lot can go wrong. But besides that, I'm really excited to sleep at home tonight.
Yay! Wake up and jump in the water.
Yeah. Just making sure that the transducer we put back in, that it's not leaking and there's no water coming in. No, we're good. No water.
What are you checking down there, Brad?
I need to open up the through hole, get water into the engine, and then we need to start up the beast, make sure she's running all right. It's all clean and smelling good down here.
Don't get too used to it.
Moment of truth. We're going to start the engine up.
Ready?
Starter's not even kicking over, is it? No. But the fact that the fan turns on, the battery is good.
So what's the plan then?
I'm gonna open up the battery compartment so that at the starter engine side, it's reading only 6 volts.
We've got 13.2, which is good. On this side of the switch, we've got 13.2. On this side of the switch, we've got 6. And if you look at the other bottom, this is 27, and the other side is 27, so it's only the 12 volt side. So I'm wondering if this contact inside this switch has gone bad, or maybe it wasn't fully engaged or something.
Maybe it was like halfway.
Alright, well let's try that. There she goes! Switch, man!
Weird.
So here I was tripping on my wiring. Feels so good to be back on the water. We're gonna find a little anchorage and we're just gonna chill.
First time using the new Mantis.
Yeah, I hope we tied it on good. She's heavy.
Going down. Good morning. What a calming way to wake up. It makes me feel really happy to be home. And this is what I've been missing about living on the water, is waking up in the morning and just being able to poke my head out and watch the sunrise. And it doesn't get much better than that, in my opinion. It's something that's small but simple and adds so much quality to life. So it feels really nice to be back. This happy little grub. How happy are you to be sleeping in your own bed?
I'm so comfy.
Making coffee in your own home again.
Yeah, everything's just as it should be. We got bagels, the stove and oven are working good. Just stoked to start the season. I'm ready to start sailing, and Drenched is coming in what, 2 days? And then we're gonna take off, and we have no idea where we're gonna go. But we're just gonna see what the weather's like and then sort of make a plan from there.
Okay.
Are you rolling? Mm-hmm. All right, I
I am just putting together the second video in our haul out series, which covers the bottom paint, the experimental bottom paint that we did. And if you remember the last video, we did a whole lot of work. That was about $25,000 in labor for a total project cost of $31,182. But what I've done is I have put together the numbers just for the bottom paint here. And if you look at the numbers, the sandblasting, which saved us so much time and labor, that came out to $1,584. We spent $440 on miscellaneous supplies, so that would be like sandpaper, rollers, coveralls, like the paint for the boot stripe, things like that, $440. The primer is actually quite expensive, so that was $1,483 for 9 gallons of primer, because remember we did 3 coats of primer to seal the bottom. The rental for the airless sprayer was actually quite cheap. It was only $60, so I think maybe the yard didn't charge us so much for that because it was the first time they used it and they didn't really know how to do it either, so we kind of figured it out together. And then the bottom paint that we used, the Seacoat VX10, which we're trying out, we only had to use 2 gallons of that because we sprayed it on with the airless sprayer. That's $360 a gallon for a total of $720. So all the sandblasting and the miscellaneous supplies and the primer and all that stuff, that came to $4,288. I counted our labor for mostly doing the bottom. That came out to 135 hours of Delos crew labor. We did it over a period of about 8 days, and we worked pretty solidly. So all in all, at an average rate of $30 per hour here in Grenada, by doing it ourselves, we saved ourselves $4,050, which is super cool. It was a heck of a lot of work, but also very, very, very fulfilling. So the total project cost, I think, if you were to do this on your own, would be about $8,000, but we saved $4 grand by doing all the heavy lifting ourselves. It's a really interesting bottom paint. I'm excited to see how it works out using something that's environmentally friendly, meaning it has no toxins, no metals leaching into the ocean, nothing like that. So the next video that I'm going to work in, now that we've been back in the water for a little while, is going to be how that's working out for us. We have installed the ultrasonic system from Sonihull, and we have some results, and I'll be showing those in an upcoming video. So be sure to stay tuned, and thanks for watching. If you like these types of videos, make sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll see you soon. Cheers!
That in your mustache. Look at this guy. Sun cream. Is that breakfast or what? Sun cream. Oh, look at that.
Piggy. Crazy piggy.
How are you gonna meet Karen with?
Crazy piggy.
Hey, Mr. Brady.
It's like could be on 1,000 Ways to Die or something.
Business in the front, party in the back.
Look at that.
You like it? I like it a lot.
It's beautiful, right? Well, it should be. It's a dream. I dreamt about our boat a lot when my days looked like this, as my boyfriend Philip and I spent 3 months in the shipyard repairing and re-rigging our 1985 Niagara 35 so we could move aboard and cruise the world. We had no idea our plans were about to take a big blue water detour, and that our days would soon look like this. It was an unexpected and incredible adventure. We spent 30 days at sea and accomplished many feats and experienced some very frightening failures as the boat bashed its way across the Atlantic Ocean. It was an enlightening adventure that Philip and I, just 90 days prior, didn't even know we would be embarking on. But that all changed when we met this man, a pilot in the French Navy who had also spent the last months in the shipyard repairing his boat from a very disheartening lightning strike. And he had a very bold plan for how he was going to get his boat back home to France across the Atlantic Ocean.
I was wondering if maybe you were going away from here at the same time I was.
Yeah, a little soon after.
Because we would have taken the same route initially.
Yeah, that would have been cool. Bloody sail. Sure.
You got a crew yet, or you got people? You're looking at it. Looking at her. Looking at it. I know it's. Yeah, I know it's risky.
That's why you
Riskier
want.
than.
That's why you want the alarms and everything. Right? Now I see.
Now you understand.
Is it something you just want to do, or you don't?
Several reasons. First of all, I like challenges. I think a lot about sailing. It's just that I have 50 times less time to think in an airplane than I have in a boat. So I think I should be okay. The only thing I'm not comfortable with is maneuvering in tight spaces, as Brandon knows. But the rest of it, it's pretty wide open ocean. So I think it's that's different. And then there's the human factor, like who do you want to take across the ocean?
Little did any of us know at the time, the humans he would be taking would be us. When a good friend and local cruiser in the fellow community, Johnny Walker, who had spent hours helping Yannick repair his boat and restore it to cruising condition, was invited along for the trip, Yannick was gracious enough to open it up and invite Philip and I as well to round out a 4-person crew for the Atlantic crossing.
I'll pretend I'm Annie Dyke on the cover of my book.
Cœur de violette, mon regard fou d'amour.
Look at that. Another potato.
Come and see my wonderful grill area in the Gulf of Mexico. What up? Not going back down to France.
What are you doing?
Trying to make the boat go.
He's like, I don't even know what's happening. We poured some rust-colored coolant down there. We're thinking that's gonna help. At 34, I never dreamed I would be doing this year now. 30 years ago, I was working in a law office and stressing about motions and deadlines, that I would be stressing about the structural integrity of a 40-foot catamaran boat and whether it can cross the Atlantic Ocean. But that's my only concern right now. That is, you know, when I need to step on board and what food I need to bring.
For Philip and I, who had both fallen in love with sailing, this was going to be an opportunity of a lifetime, and an adventure we could not wait to embark on. There was only the really very simple matter of preparing the boat for the passage.
Oh, go for it. Tell us about your boat. Tell us about all your boat problems. Nobody has
Thank you. No, ask me what's
You're at the shipyard. I mean,
yeah, but ask me what's new and cool about my boat, not what the problems are.
Nobody likes that. Nobody likes that.
Third glass half.
She just needed a mast, some sails, windows, critical transmission parts, very minor stuff really.
It's just a pass through.
Yeah.
Hey, you want juice? What juice?
You really think?
You want rain?
We were definitely scrambling in the weeks, well, and days before our departure date to get the boat ready for the passage. But it was a really cool feeling the day we were able to hoist the new sails for the very first time and get out on our first sail on the catamaran. Docking and de-docking was something that was still very stressful for the crew. For our first departure, we let our resident boat expert, Brandon, take the helm to make sure we made it out without damage. First sail on the catamaran was definitely exhilarating, although we could tell she sailed much differently than our model. With just a few days left, though, before we embarked for France, all we had to do was provision and move forward. The boat we were taking was a 2005 French-built Savoie Freitas. It is a 46-foot, high-performance catamaran. The captain, Yannick, let us choose our sleeping arrangements, and the crew decided on the berths on the port side, while the captain took the main suite on starboard. The saloon, galley, and cockpit area were really spacious, offering a great gathering ground for the crew. The Freitas was well equipped for cruising with a generator, water maker, solar panels, as well as a separate freezer and a water heater. The boat also had a great deal of storage, which was good. Provisioning that boat for a 30-day passage was, well, interesting. Our shopping carts were so full and cantankerous, Yannick called them barges. Somehow we were able to fit all of that food onto the boat, though, and then came the fun project of stowing the water.
Got the water maker, which is hopefully how we'll be making water, but we've also got backup water in addition to the tank water. So hopefully we will not be going very thirsty. We're going to store these in the bilge.
We packed a lot of water, but that was the last of the provisions. After that, Philip and I moved aboard, with our address for the next 6 weeks being the SV Andanza, and there was only one thing left to do.
Charlie 433, let's back up Charlie 330, 358 source.
Down here since 1998. We've seen you last year a lot, but we never really had a chance to talk.
No,
So
it was
I'm glad,
probably my head down in some compartments.
you were working on a lot of
Yes.
electronics. It
Mhm.
looked
Yes.
like an abortion of electrician. But listen. Have safe travels tomorrow. Fair winds and following seas. Here's to you guys. Make sure you're safe.
After a few more rounds of shots, the obligatory farewell photo, and a party that went well into the night, it was decided by the crew that night to spend one evening on the hook at Fort McRae with our local cruising buddies for one big farewell send-off. It was still an incredibly exciting day, my birthday, May 28th, as the crew prepared to shove off from the dock for what could be the last time before we made it to France.
40 that just dropped off an adult male for a voluntary commitment.
Johnny Walker, tell me what this trip means to you.
It means the world to me.
We're leaving the dock. This is it. It's the last time the boat is going to be right there by a dock, unless we fuel up. Unless we fuel up.